If you have a child who struggles with reading or writing, you know the challenges it can place in your homeschool. So today I'm going to share with you 10 adaptations that work in our homeschool and may work in yours. Now, this is not, obviously it's not medical advice, it's not a substitution for treatments or diagnosis or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just going to share with you 10 things that have worked for us. Number one, and probably the most important, and I speak from experience on this, is not to label them lazy, stubborn, etc. It's not going to help them. It's not going to build them up. It's going to affect how you view them. It's going to affect your relationship with each other. It may make you see it as a situation to win rather than a situation to problem solve. And mostly it's just not going to do anything. It's not going to improve the situation. So in the midst of the other struggles, don't get bogged down in that. Number two, audiobooks are a huge help. Now, I have held a bias on them as a substitute for actual reading because I bought into the idea that you have to read a book in order to be good. Now, obviously, I think that's more the ideal, but for students who struggle, they're not getting the same out of it as someone who doesn't. There are also studies that show that similar parts of your brain are being activated, whether you are listening or you're reading. I've read a lot of other articles that have just, in the past couple of years, that have really just made me relax on that. And so we don't use them exclusively, but they can be a great option for you. Number three, don't be afraid to do some of the reading for them. Again, as they got older, I just bought into this idea that they need to do it all themselves. If reading a few pages or a chapter helps your student to have some confidence and eases them into reading it on their own, why do we need to not do that? Why can't that be a help? Maybe it's just a matter of reading a paragraph and then that gets them going and they can move into it. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's, alternating paragraphs or the first page of every chapter. Whatever it is, figure out what might work and go for it. Number four, preview and review with literature guides. Well, you can do it however you want, but I think literature guides are a great idea. Previewing it is going to give your students some kind of categories for what they're going to be learning and a way to kind of fit those ideas into the characters and ideas into those categories versus like having to develop the categories and fit everybody in. And same with reviewing, it gives them a chance to take those things and put them in the right categories. Literature guides can be a really great help for that because for novels, they already have that information down for you. You can go through and do the background and the summary and vocabulary and all those sorts of things that can just help. I recently, in my Friday Freebies newsletter, if you're interested, I'll have a video up there, sent out a link for the Glencoe literature guides. These are free literature guides and they have some really great titles. More of the classic type books. They're a great option. There are other ones like Prodigy Press has some, and Memoria Press, I think it is. If you search for literature guides, you'll find a lot of ones that can help you with this. Kind of in the same vein, something like Sparks Notes or Cliff Notes can also help for it. Number five, if dysgraphia is an issue, teach typing early and encourage it heavily. Part of the issue with dysgraphia is create the letter formation and visualizing how to do it. So if you've taken that out, then you're giving them kind of shortcutting one of the steps. One of my kids does way more complex and thorough answers typing versus writing because of that issue. Number 6, again with dysgraphia, consider using oral tests instead of written tests, narration rather than written summaries, that sort of thing. Take out where the problem lies and get the answers. Deal with the writing issues separately. Number 7, when it comes to literature, consider your goals. Is your goal for your child to be familiar, and this might vary depending on the book, be familiar with the story and able to converse about it, or is your goal for them to read the original text in completion? If your goal is just for them to be familiar with the story, consider adaptations, consider, a lot of them have graphic novels. If it's the second, if your goal is the second, consider books that are lower lexile levels, books that are in a more modern language, print editions that have larger fonts or larger spacings, different fonts. All of those things can affect their ability to read it easily and focus more on the text itself and the story itself versus deciphering and getting through all of those issues. If you think my hair's looking different now, you're right, my battery ran out and I had to go get a haircut anyway, so this is what it looks like after she actually uses the diffuser and such. If you have curly hair, I highly suggest looking for a Diva curl cut specialist. They're amazing. Anyway, on to my next one. Let's see. Number 8 is eliminate whatever their struggle is when you're doing other subjects. Now, for example, if you have a child who struggles with reading, then a math program like Life of Fred that they read with them reading it independently is probably not going to be a good fit, because not only are they trying to understand the concept of the math concept, they're also having to work really hard on the reading. For writing programs, something like IEW or writing strands, there's nothing extra really to them. IEW can have some extra, but not much. I mean, it's pretty just straightforward, just the writing practice. That would be something that would be better for a child who struggles with reading. If you have a child who is a great reader but struggles with dysgraphia, or with actually writing out, maybe something like a literature-based program would be a really good choice because they're doing so much reading, or something else that's more parent-directed, parent-led, so that there's more chance for discussion and such versus writing. This isn't my next tip, but I'm going to throw it in there as a bonus tip. If you have a child for whom writing and space planning is difficult, we discovered that graph paper is a huge help for doing things like, we've discovered it with multiplication and division, but addition, subtraction, that because it already helps with the space planning. They don't have to plan that, which is a real hallmark of dysgraphia. So, just my little bonus tip. Number 9, text-to-speech programs or speech-to-text programs are huge lifesavers. If you have Mac products, there's already some of that functionality built into the system. I have not explored it much yet, but I know there's a lot out there, so you can Google for it, YouTube, look for it on there. I'm sure you're going to find plenty. For text-to-speech, we use an extension on Chrome, and we use the free version of it. So far, we've not found the need to go to the paid one, and it's called, let me check, Read and Write for Chrome. They also have it for other platforms, iPads, and Windows-based programs. There's other versions. But it will read what's on the screen. You can highlight, with your cursor, a section. If you just need certain read, it will highlight in yellow the sentence it's reading with blue for the word that it's on. And the voice is pretty good. It's not too robotic sounding, but it's a great way if your goal is for your child to consume what's on the screen versus practicing with reading. This is a great option for you. And then speech to text, if your child has struggles with getting words down on paper for whatever diagnosis, speech to text is great. Google Docs has that built in it. Microsoft Word does too. We haven't played around with that one, so I'm not sure how that one works, but it does. So those are great options. And in some ways, to me, it feels like cheating to do that, but it's not. It's giving them a leg up on being able to finally get all those words out of their head and onto paper without the struggles that come with that process. And number 10, ask them and listen to their answers without judgment. That's the part that I have to remind myself of sometimes. Some kids ask your child, how do you read best? Do you do best on a computer screen? Do you do best on a screen like a tablet or an iPad? Kindles, hardback books. Kindles have, you can change your, the different fonts. In fact, there's even one that's specifically supposed to make it easier to read for people who have dyslexia. Play with the margins and the spacing and the font size. Play with all those things. If they're really struggling with their reading, ask them and see if they can tell you what about it. And on the flip side, if something comes really easy, see if they can tell you why is it easy. Was it just because of the material, or was there something with the letters or the margin spacing, whatever? Ask them. They may not be able to tell you, especially if they're younger, but by talking it through, over time they're going to start learning to pay attention to those things so they can articulate to you what helps them. Let me double check. Yeah, that was my last one. So those are some ways that we deal with and adapt for my students who have struggles in language arts areas. If you have an adaptation that you've made or found successful in your homeschool, I would love for you to leave them below. I would love to learn more ideas, and I would love for you guys to be able to share with each other, because I know how frustrating this can be and how overwhelming it all can be. So I want to be able to empower you to have ideas to handle it. And vice versa. I'd love to get more ideas from other people on this too. So those are my 10 tips. Thanks for watching.